almost exactly 4 weeks or 1 month since I ran the Last Man Standing Ultramarathon at Pineland Farms in Maine. I signed up for this race in March. I was just kind of using an app on my phone to kind of run train. It was starting me out like 1 minute walking, 2 minute running. And the plan was really good. It was awesome. You could download it. It would go on your phone, and then on the phone, it would transfer it to your watch. But I just didn't really feel confident that that was going to get me to where I needed to be. Because my goal going into this race was to win. I wanted to be the last man standing. So I definitely wanted to really train in a way that I could be that last man standing. The way that I really think about training, especially back when I was bodybuilding, because it's a very subjective sport. You're being judged by a panel of judges. It doesn't come down to who's the fastest, who's the actual best. It's what that panel of judges believes at that time. So if I were to give 110% into my training, I could accept whatever placement I got coming off of that stage, because I knew I brought my body to the absolute best that it could be. And if that just wasn't what the judges were looking for that year, that's okay. I could accept my placing and walk away knowing that I gave fucking everything. That's the way that I wanted my training to go with running. So that's why I decided to get a coach. Well, having somebody kind of plan and lay everything out for me so that I can just execute on a daily basis is a lot better for me. I could not run before this. I had shin splints. I would run in the red zone. I would finish a run and feel like my lungs were bleeding and like I was gonna die. And I think that's what I liked about it, is it's something that I wasn't good at, and something that I was going to have to learn to be good at and work hard to be good at. The beginning of the training block was really just kind of getting my feet underneath me. And then as we progressed along, I actually ended up running my first marathon and my first ultramarathon, 50K, all in the training block. The week prior to the race, and as we were traveling to the States and traveling to the race, it definitely started to hit me that, like, you have never run further than 50 kilometers before, and you ran that 50 kilometers 2 weeks ago training for this race. The day before the race, we went to Pineland Farms so that we could check out the course. And what I had been doing is I would do a long straight run on Saturday, and then on Sunday I would do a long run in the form of like X amount of hours, but each one of those hours I would treat as a lap so that I could kind of get used to fueling like that, get used to running for about 48 to 50 minutes and having that break. What I was doing was I was running on a pretty much flat surface. There was like slight incline and decline, but for the most part it was very flat. So when we showed up to Pineland Farms and the race director was actually there on a side-by-side kind of marking the course, he explained to us that there's a bit of elevation. And on the website it said moderate elevation, so I went into it being like, okay, so moderately flat. Wrong. There was a lot of downhill and a lot of uphill. So it was actually pretty substantial. I definitely could have allowed that to freak me out and maybe let more negative thoughts creep in. But honestly, I really didn't. I was just like, you know what? I'm here now. I've trained super, super hard for this. I know that I have strong legs because of my weight training background, so I wasn't going to let the hills be bothersome to me. I was just going to kind of go into it with the mentality that I had prior to that. The race started with 249 people, so that was actually a little bit worrisome to me, having 250 people all having to toe the line and go through this like pretty small start line and then only have 4.2 miles, right? Like, how long is it going to take 250 people to go through the start line, get the whole lap done? I didn't want to have to like elbows in the air fucking fight my way through, so I was a little bit nervous about that, but those nerves went away on the first lap. Unfortunately, when you're running a loop with that many people though, I don't want to say it's impossible to choose your own pace. So for the first probably 8 hours, you me personally was not really able to pick my pace because I was just kind of being pushed with whatever group of people that I was with at the start. It wasn't a narrow trail, but it definitely, I mean, with that many people, it was definitely tough. So you weren't picking your own pace. I wasn't able to do what I had practiced pace wise. I was just kind of being forced. Here's where you walk, here's where you run. So it was kind of good in a sense, I guess, because it really kept your mind busy. Like, you know what, you're just getting pushed around with all of these people. Let's get her done. So at 8 hours is when we started to see like substantial drops, because I think a lot of people are there, you know, with different milestones, which I think is this style of race is really cool for. Like, if you want to run your first ultra, which is 50K, you just run for 8 hours. If you want to run your first 100 kilometers, if you want to run your first 100 miles, it's a cool kind of style of a race to do that. So we definitely saw a substantial amount of people dropping out kind of at each milestone. So at 7 p.m. they had mandatory headlights. If you didn't have a headlight, you weren't allowed to go out on that loop. 7 p.m. comes around, I've got my headlight on, I go out for the run, and I don't know how to work it. I did not practice working with the specific headlight that I had. So I was in the dark, and the trail had a lot of rocks and roots and technical kind of sections. So that was very, very difficult for me. As I'm running on the trail, I come up on this guy who actually ended up winning the race, but he had a chest light on, and it was literally a Berta style light bar on this guy's chest. It was amazing. So he was kind of lighting up the whole path in front of him, and there was actually 4 of us that ended up just kind of gravitating towards this light and doing majority of the dark laps with the 2 gentlemen that were running with this super, super bright light. So that was really encouraging to help me kind of get through the night, because I found a group that was running at a pace that was super, super doable for me. I think we were coming in at about 48 to 50 minutes, and it was good conversation. They were super friendly. At the end section of the race, there's this corner you go around that takes you to this open field, and I know once I get to this open field, I have about 5 minutes to the finish line. So every time I would get to that field, it was like, well, you made it to the field. You have 5 minutes. You know, you can go hug Kale. You can get some food. You can have some water. You can take a 2-minute nap if you want. You're only 5 minutes away. And then when you would cross the finish line, I was like, well, I did it. I finished the lap. What's to say I can't do another lap? And then again, start the lap, want to quit aggressively, get to that field and feel just that I could keep going. So I think that's a big thing that I learned, was you want to quit, but it's so worth it to push through that and to not quit and to finish every single lap or finish what you're doing. See it through. Don't quit just because there's so much out there ahead of you, because you really don't know what you're capable of unless you start seeing things through. The lap that I wanted to quit the most, I had to pee probably 4 to 5 times every lap, which when you have X amount of time to finish a lap and you're running into the trees so that you can use the bathroom and then coming back out, it was taking away from my time, and it was just very stressful. I didn't really understand that it was throwing my electrolytes off, or that it was a factor coming from my electrolytes being thrown off. So that was another huge learning lesson, and what ultimately ended the race for me. But I came in, you know, I didn't get that last 5 minutes of you did it. I really did want to quit, and my husband could see that. And so he just put my feet in the air, started rubbing my calves, and said to me, remember why you're doing this. And I started that lap. That lap was probably my slowest lap. Even though I went super slow, I was really, really in my head. I still completed the lap. Next lap, I ran the first mile at a 7:50 8-minute pace, which was a lot faster than I was going. I was going at about like a 13-minute pace average throughout the laps. So that was fast. And I just wanted to get my legs moving underneath me, and I wanted blood to start pumping and to really feel again and wake myself up. My mindset after Kale had said to me, you know, remember why you're doing this, I remembered why the fuck I was doing it, and my attitude was totally different. Unfortunately, simultaneously, I started to feel very weird within my body. I broke out in hives really, really bad. And at one point I was walking in the lap and I was getting a little bit behind. I was watching my pace and my watch, and this gentleman comes up beside me and he's like, "You okay?" And I was like, "Man, I can't run." And he just laughed because clearly he'd experienced that before. He just said, "Come after me." So he started running and I was able to run after him, and we ran together for that entire lap. And he could have just ran past me and been like, "Well, she's out, she's gonna be too slow," but he made the time to stop and talk to me and encourage me and make sure that I could run and finish that lap. So that really meant a lot to me. And it almost gives you like, okay, I'm gonna run the next lap for that guy because that was amazing. So I was able to get a few more laps done, and finally I got to a lap where my husband talked to my coach, and my coach said she needs sodium. So they told me, you know, stop drinking the premixed drinks that we're making you. You're gonna drink straight water. My husband gave me a couple tablespoons of honey, which is straight salt. But at this point, it was a terrible feeling. I was having to urinate absolutely frequently, and always kind of had the sensation that I had to pee. That next lap, after they kind of pumped me full of some sodium, the sun was up at this point, so there was like that refreshing awakening sun up feeling. It got to the first downhill and my quad locked up. So I walked the downhill, I got to the first uphill and my hamstring locked up. So I was just at this point where my leg was just straight as a board, cramping, locking up, and I fell short that lap and timed out. Falling short was, I would run a million laps of that again before I would experience falling short like I did. So I definitely have a whole new fire lit within me to really get my nutrition on track and make sure that I can truly test myself. All in all, it was a learning experience. I could see that my parents were still super, super proud of me, and my husband was super, super proud of me, and I got so much love and encouragement from those of you online, so thank you so much. It means so much to me and gives me a lot of motivation. I don't like the word motivation. It warms my heart. And sometimes when my alarm goes off at 4 a.m, I don't want to get up to run. And those types of things give me a reason to get up to run. So yeah, definitely thank you for all of the online encouragement. That was super awesome. And huge thank you to my mom and dad who came in all the way there and crewed me. And unbelievable, overwhelming thank you to my husband for always being there for me and being there to crew that night and being the person to give me that crucial pep talk of just remember why you're doing what you're doing. That was really amazing. All right, so now I put a sticker on my story saying that I was gonna kind of do a recap video and asked if any of you had some questions. So now I'm going to answer those questions. What inspired you to start running ultras? I don't know if I can say that there was like something that's specific that inspired me to start running ultras. I just started running, and a 10K, a half marathon, a marathon, those things weren't really intriguing to me. I mean, one day I may run one of them, but that's not really why I got into running or what I was looking to do. So I just, I think I want to see how far I can go. Bodybuilding stage or this run, both preps are difficult. Which prep did you enjoy more? This, absolutely, running. I enjoy way, 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 way more. I hate it so much. Like, I don't like getting up early in the morning and going for a run. And usually for the first 45 minutes of my run, I hate it. But there's something about overcoming that every single day and for me, not being good at something and seeing it through until I am good at it. Bodybuilding preps are tough, but they're definitely not as tough. I mean, without knocking it, there's, yeah, not as much goes into it. It's all very superficial. So I think that this is definitely a more exciting physical challenge. That being said, I think my bodybuilding background and my bodybuilding base is huge, huge, huge for my running and my ability to run ultras. That was like a key component going into this, was my bodybuilding background and my bodybuilding base. So yes, I enjoyed this one a lot more, but I'm extremely thankful that I have that bodybuilding background. How many people were entered in the race? There was 249 people entered in the race, and I dropped 15th out of those 249 people. How did I pick which race I wanted to do? I had watched a documentary on YouTube. There's so many amazing ultra running documentaries on YouTube. They're so well done. But I had watched one on the backyard style ultra. I just really like this style, and I'm not a super fast runner yet. And so that kind of took the speed stress out of it for me. And I knew that I could just really go the distance. And it was just exciting because there's no finish line, there's no end. So you get to see kind of an open-ended, how far are people gonna go? And that was really intriguing to me. So that's why I chose Last Man Standing style. What was the hardest part of this race? The hardest part for me personally, I guess two things. One was the elevation. So the uphills and the downhills did a number on my calves and my quads. And then another thing that was really hard was repetitiveness, just lap after lap after lap, doing the same thing again and again and again, knowing every single hill, every single struggle point, every single easy point, knowing the 1 mile mark, knowing the 2 mile mark, knowing that big rock in the corner. Oh, hey, there's my buddy tree over there. Especially when night fell, you could really, really see that people stopped talking and they were really in their heads, fighting their own little individual battles just because of the repetition of lap after lap after lap. Is there anything I would do differently if I could go back and run it again? Yes. I would train for the hills. As I've said, I was unprepared for that, so I would definitely train more elevation. And then I would really get my nutrition dialed. Going in with a solid electrolyte breakdown per hour is something that I would do differently and will be doing differently for my next race. How long did you train? So like I said, I started training April 3rd. So I had 5 straight months of training. The way that my coach does it, and majority of running coaches will do it, is a 3-week build and a 1-week back off. So 5 rounds of that style of a training block, basically. Was it harder mentally or physically? It was harder mentally until the end there, I suppose. Unfortunately, because as soon as my mentality flipped and I was in it to win it again, that's when physically it became extremely difficult. So I think it's like a balance of physically hard and mentally hard. One thing I found is as things would pop up that would start to hurt, you would just kind of have to take a minute and accept that pain and continue to run. And accept the next level of pain and accept the next level of pain and know that it's probably just going to be like this for the remainder of the race. One thing that I will say is I thought that pain would increase and increase and increase and increase open-endedly throughout the race, but it definitely hit a point where it's like, okay, this is how bad your body's going to hurt. Now endure it. What is my first impression of the ultra community? I fucking love them. I met some of the most friendly, amazing people I've ever met. A few days prior to the race, my husband and I went to a camping store to stock up on some extra gear since we flew there, so we had to pick up some things for the race. And the girl was like, the cash was like, oh, you must be like going on some crazy adventure because this is a lot of stuff. And I was like, oh, I'm running my first ultra marathon on Saturday. And she's like, oh my gosh, where is it? And I had no idea how to pronounce New Gloucester. New Gloucester. Again, I can't pronounce it, but it's New Gloucester. So I was trying to pronounce this city name and totally butchered it. And there was this man over in the corner and he corrected me and said, my son's running in that race. He's running it for the past few years. So we went into the parking lot and had a conversation with him about the race and about how his son had did. He kind of gave me some of his son's trade secrets, so that was pretty awesome. So right off the bat, we met someone amazing who was willing to kind of share some insight with us. My neighbors, they were absolutely amazing. There was a few of them running and a few of them just crewing, and seeing the support that they had for each other, and even for me if I needed it, and my family, was really, really amazing. Love them. Love the community. Amazing. I can't wait to continue to compete in it. What was it like running with Nick Bear? I can't say what it's like to run with him because I didn't really run with him a whole lot. He did a breakdown following the race where he said that he was running certain lap splits, but that's not accurate because my lap splits were about that speed and he was coming in around 10 minutes faster than me. So his lap splits were between 42 and 46 minutes and mine were between 48 and 52 minutes. So I didn't really run with him a whole lot. I did have one conversation with him because he was peeing like a motherfucker and so was I. So at one point I was like, dude, the only person out here on the course right now peeing more than I am is you. But otherwise didn't really run with him. Can't really say. If you were to ask me during my hardest laps when I wanted to quit the most if I was going to run another ultra or run another race, I would have been like, fuck no, I'm never doing this again ever. This is the worst thing I've ever done in my life. And that made me realize that you're a low brain, or your brain when you're feeling down in the dumps, or you want to quit because there's so much ahead of you, your bitch voice. When that comes out, it's almost like your drunk brain. You're lying to yourself. You're telling yourself straight up lies. Because the day after, my coach actually did ask me, what's next? Where should we go from here? How are you feeling? And I was ready to talk about goals. I was ready to talk about what was next. So don't listen to that piece of shit voice in your brain that tells you to quit, that tells you to walk towards comfort, that tells you that you're not good enough, because it's very similar to your drunk brain and it's only going to get you in trouble and it's only going to hold you back. But it was cool to overcome that and to feel the next day that like, fuck yeah, let's move onwards and upwards, which we are. And I'm really excited for what's next.